Everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to our second meeting with Barbara Hall. In this case, we are going to have a special guest. Apart from Barbara, who's there, Laura Mota is going to be part of the presentation. It's going to be kind of a dialogue, but they are going to talk about TEFL in multi-grade classrooms and especially about the Godparents Project, which is a very important project not only for Inglés Illimitados, which is the program that is attached to, but also it's a great program on its own right. So I would like to to pass the microphone to Barbara and to Laura, and they are going to enlighten us with this presentation. Thank you very much for being here, Barbara, and the ground is all yours.
Thank you, Aldo. Well, it's great to be here and welcome to all the godparents that are on the other side of this camera. I'm here with Barbara Hall, who is a very good friend of Uruguay, I would say. She has been here on previous years twice, and most of the teachers English teachers know her because she did a wonderful work with us. So Barbara is part of the Department of English in English as a foreign language of the Georgia State University in Atlanta. And she is a researcher, and she delivers conference on different topics. But multi-grade level classrooms is one of the topics she has worked and did, a lot of research on that. That's why we asked her to talk about that from the perspective of the rural schools and the class integrated by students from different ages and different levels. And that's all I'm going to say. So thank you, Barbara, for being here. All yours.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Aldo and Laura, for that wonderful introduction. I want to say that the project of the godparents is absolutely fascinating. I've only been in Uruguay this time for about 6 days, and I've been soaking up all of the information that I can in this limited time about it. I want to give a disclaimer that though I have experience in multi-grade or multi-level teaching, I am by no means an expert. And what I want to present today are just some ideas and some strategies, some things to think about. I'd like to present and go into some detail about some methods that I have used in my multi-level classrooms back in my college and in different experiences. I also am using some of the experience that I have with teaching English to low-level Spanish speakers when I was at Georgetown, and certainly had multi-level students and the challenges there. I am going to be using the terms multi-grade, multi-level in similar ways. So you might see them in this presentation like that. So for my agenda, what I'd like to try to do today is talk about some of the challenges of this kind of learning, and with those challenges, some of the practices that you may want to avoid. little bit of second language theory and methodology and how we can put that into practice in the classroom, and some how-to activities with some final comments. I want to again have this disclaimer that all of you as godparents who are teaching have the expertise of the work that you've done and know a lot of the challenges. And if you would like to put comments into the chat or follow up, we can do that. I'll be here in Uruguay for approximately 2.5 more months, and we can have a follow-up discussion if this is something of interest. So for challenges that we have, your role as the mediator is a very complex one. You have, of course, your students at the rural schools, you have the classroom teacher, and you have to work within that framework, which in my mind is a very tricky one. You also have the challenges of how the classroom is set up, if you're going to have a whiteboard, what kind of instruments and facilities that might be provided. And of course, many of you that are overseas and in different time locations have all of that as well. Plus, as I have been looking through all the materials, there's just a lot of things that you have to take in and understand. And of course, all of this is in the second language of English. Also, and another aspect of this are the particular language challenges that you have in those multi-grade, multi-level classes. There probably will be a variety of first language as well as second language. Also, I know that new students who come in, who are late arrivals, present a kind of a new dimension when you're teaching, because then you have the students who have been participating week after week with new students, and how you integrate that can be a very, very important challenge. And then you have the challenge of students who just remain more passive. They are in the mode of taking in information versus the ones that are very forthcoming and want to talk all the time. So again, noticing those differences and managing them is also a very tricky thing and an important challenge for you as a classroom teacher. So a few common things that I would like to talk about, things that you might want to avoid. First of all, of course, when you have multi-grade students or multi-level students, you might initially think of them all as one. And you're going to see later on in this presentation that I talk about hitting the middle of that range, but you want to be able to notice and recognize that they are going to have different levels of competency. So you want to find ways that you will see these different groups. And maybe you're just going to have a beginning or not a novice group and a more advanced group. You might not have 3 separate levels, but you want to be able to distinguish those levels. And how do you do that? Well, you hear what they have to say. You can see in their comprehension what their levels might be. You can see in their interaction. So as the mediator, the facilitator, you of course want to take in that information and probably even make some notes about that week to week. Another aspect of something that I feel is very important is to avoid relying on Spanish to explain something. And why is that? Because in speaking in English for the entire time, it provides that continuity of language. And then you, as that mediator, serve as that model of success. They see you as being the fluent one. And even if you are hesitant about your level of English, it certainly is a good idea to show them how you practice it and you're willing to use that. I often find that in classes, when I wait for a student to remember the word or remember that particular aspect, they will come up with it. And that I try a lot of rephrasing to try to pull that out. So just a couple of general reminders. Now, I'd also then like to bring up something that you already know, I'm sure, what they bring to the table with learning a language, especially in those elementary years. First, generally, they're highly motivated and energetic. They bring a kind of enthusiasm that we want to use and we want to have as a important part of the class. Also, especially those young learners, they're like sponges. They want to absorb, and they do absorb the kinds of things that you have to offer. Maybe not 100%, maybe only 50%, but they will take that in, and they are ready to imitate and participate. They like doing. They like acting and doing things. They generally, young children like working with others, working with peers. They're very social, and they learn from that environment. We want to really remember those things when we come up with different strategies. And we also want to recognize what these young learners can experience with your support and your mediation, your facilitation, that especially at an early age, that learning English can be a lot of fun. It doesn't have the kind of hardship hang-ups that older age lessons might. They want to be like those sponges and have fun with the language. Second, they can become more confident in their overall use of language without even realizing it. And that's the nice thing about your part of it. And when they have those kind of memories for early learning, it can be very helpful later when they have to study it in a more formal way or at a higher level. They can remember that learning English is a positive experience, and we need that to happen. So a little bit of second language methodology for the classroom. I'm going to mention macro skills, say some things about active learning. One technique that can be used, and maybe you have already introduced, TPR, total physical response, and then activities that involve communicative approaches. These are things that for all levels of English, and even in my college classes at Georgia State, I use, because they are important fundamentals for just learning in the classroom and keeping students engaged. We really want to have them engaged in that particular period of time. So for our macro skills, reading, speaking, writing, listening, those are, the 4 skills that we teach in English language teaching. The 2 that are receptive, listening and reading, and productive, speaking and writing. And of course, at the lower levels, the aspects of listening and speaking really take precedent over reading and writing. But as I have looked at the handbooks that you have, they're very well integrated in skills, and I really have the highest praise for the work that the authors have done. The flashcards that are used the activities. There is quite a bit of visual representation in the book. And there's a lot of spiraling of the vocabulary and the activities. It's a lot of fun. As I looked through the book, it's a lot of fun. And I think they should market these books to schools in the United States. But that's my personal opinion. I'm going to work on that while I'm here, tell them to do that. I'm going to just mention 5 strategies for how you can maximize the positive aspects of multi-level classrooms and again, multi-grade classrooms. And I'm going to say a little bit about each of these. Teaching to the middle and then assigning leveled activities, flexible grouping, cross-age tutoring, organized learning centers, and project-based learning. So these are sort of a bag of tricks you can have. And when you have that particular unit or subject, you can think about how you could use any of these strategies with your particular content. Okay. So the first, teaching to the middle range at first. Again, I said earlier, you don't want to see them as a homogeneous group. They're multi-level and they have different levels of ability, but it can be helpful as a starting point with having, hitting the 80% of that group, not the super high level or the super low level, and then later breaking off into leveled activities. And that's going to come up in more of the discussion here. So flexible grouping. What is flexible grouping? Well, we tend to want to put students together in terms of their level of English, their skill level of English, but it can also be a grouping on level of interest or level of task. For example, if you are doing a unit on food, it might not just be that you group on high level versus low level. You might group on people who like vegetables versus people who like fruits, and have a flexible group within that larger group. Now, I know from talking to Laura and Shirley that some of the groups that you might have are only 2 students, and others of you have 20. And so there are different challenges depending on how big your group is. You may only have 3 students. One might be a novice and one might be a high level. And so you would work with that group, those 3 students as a group. So there's no one clear way that you can do that flexible grouping, but having them do some of the pairing work is important. And that brings me to the next part, which is cross-age tutoring. This is something I'm a very big fan of. I myself ran a project with my ESL students at the college who were ages 18 to 24, who would go across the street where there was an elementary school and work with mostly refugees and immigrants in Clarkston, Georgia. These students had various levels of English, and my college students had various levels of English. So the older students who would read books to the younger students gave a lot of information and represented models of success of learning English to those lower level. And in some ways, this kind of cross-age tutoring works well at the schools here in Uruguay. In this training video that is online for all the godparents, you have an older student who is talking about her family members. And she starts out and she tells, this is her father, this is the mother, this is the aunt, this is the cousin. She gives the names, she points them out, and she has quite an extensive vocabulary of all those family members. And then in the video, she is there with two younger students in her school. The next student uses some of the vocabulary, but not all. He mentions his father, this is his father, this is his mother, and I think also a grandmother, fewer vocabulary, but certainly he has listened to that older student. And then even the younger student who is just beginning contributes part of what she knows. So this is something that is not hard to do with almost every subject. So I'm a big fan of this cross-age tutoring. You can do it with struggling classmates, and it benefits both. And I want to point out here that the less advanced student could be the older student. We don't want to forget about that. There are some younger students who have started from level 1, grade 1, and gone consistently through. And there might be an older student that starts in school because he or she has moved there. And so it's not necessarily older or younger students, but it's based on the level of English that they might have to do the grouping. So you want to ask yourself about, is it easy to implement this in your multi-grade class? First, thinking about our different skills, are they paired together, how they can learn from each other. Sometimes, as I said, it's involving the older students, more experienced, to assist with the younger, less experienced. And because remember that also that the students don't tend to criticize. They might add vocabulary, but they don't necessarily say anything that is derogatory. And what it does, it creates a kind of cooperative learning situation in the class, and really nice environment of trust with each other, and of course with yourself as the mentor. Another technique, which is slightly different, is having an organized learning center. And this is, of course, something that you need help with that classroom teacher to set up. But having a center that might be for practice of numbers, another one practice of colors, another one with practice of family members and names, that you can have students move from center to center as that multi-grade group. And the older students can help the younger students with some of the activities. This is something that could be a permanent thing in classrooms for you, or something that you do on special days. Again, getting that help from that classroom teacher. And finally, project-based learning. Again, nothing new, but having a project that is coinciding with perhaps a particular school goal or school project that might be going on, raising money for something or a particular sport, that students working together collaboratively to create something together, solve a problem, And that also is a way that you can unite those older, more experienced language learners with the younger. And I have a couple of more ideas. One of the new macro skills that is in the literature in second language teaching is something called media literacy and visual literacy. And of course, this dovetails with doing project work. And these projects might be visual organizers, different diagrams and maps, family trees when you're doing the family units. And one that I particularly like is a timeline where students write in dates and events of their lives and then talk about that to their group or to the student or to you. This facilitates, of course, a lot of oral practice, repetition, questioning and answering sort of higher level cognitive skills. And then I also wanted to add just some other kind of fun things, communicative, the bring me, you as the godparent can say, well, yeah, can you bring me a baseball? Can you bring me a piece of chalk? Can you bring me a pencil? And having students bringing you tangibles, manipulatives. Of course, use of songs. I see in the Inglés Sin Límites book, lots of use of songs, just perfect. I was singing them myself, and they're very nice. And of course, that is communicative competency at its best. They might not even know what those words mean, but they are pronouncing them. Total physical response is just what we use oftentimes to get students to know action verbs: sit, stand, clap, raise your hand, any kind of thing, especially when you see students who are tired, maybe they've been sitting too long, and it also is good for physical activity and movement. And if you are doing the unit on body parts, the show me your elbow, show me your thumb, show me your nose, again, requiring movement and communication. Other additional speaking activities, bringing in family photo, and we saw that on the initial video of how a visual helps students to come up with things. Describing toys or pets with a photo, telling a short story, tell me the story of your birthday, tell me the story when you got a pet, and even having the other students remember parts of that story. I don't have to talk to teachers about explaining a game. Mostly they have lots of games, and even your classroom teacher might help godparents with that. Songs we've mentioned, different role playing, and different interviews or different, lots of different kinds of activities. I think that my point here with giving so much information is that in my mind, as the English teacher on video, that you don't want to be spending the entire hour talking to them. Though what you may have to say is very interesting, and they are probably wanting to know about aspects of your life. But the teacher talk in any class, and I believe this from kindergarten up, really should be less than 50% of the time. Gone are the days where the teacher was the center of attention and the disseminator of information. In order for students to really record, to learn, to make use of language, that's what they need to be doing. Make use of it. So the more that you can think about making them practice in the target language, English, the more impact it will have, the more it will improve their memory, the more that some of what you teach will be long lasting. A fun game that I think is always one that you can do if things get a little boring or plain are the games that we used to call telephone or gossip, where you might have one person, I mean, it would be the teacher that's in the classroom, come up with a phrase and start the circle and see what they come up at the end. This is kind of a nice icebreaker, but you can also, have short videos that practice language. But I know you have those videos at the beginning that are part of the lesson. And again, positive reinforcement is some advice I'd like to conclude with. It took me a long time in my teaching to learn to hold back on correction, especially with grammar. I even in my writing classes hold back on pretending that I'm the expert and that they are the novice. It makes so much more sense to do modeling, giving them the word that maybe they can't find, to help them with that, not in Spanish, but in English, and to incorporate repetition and pronunciation of words, and giving them as much positive feedback as possible, always. Also, in my mind, a good class is one that gets noisy, that's interactive, that students are engaged. But also, as I said earlier, you are going to have those silent learners that are needing time to take in the language before the production. So I am giving my information here, and I'd like Laura to come in, and she might comment on anything.
Thank you, Barbara. It was really great because you gave us some information about what this means, having groups and students from different levels, ages, and at the same time to see how we can work with that. Although they are different, we are all different, but we can work together, especially if we trust what they are learning and what they can do if they work together. So I think that is really important, and that I'm sure that many of the audience here may have questions or some suggestions. So we're going to ask Valentina, who's here, to read some of
Stay here.
Okay. Okay, and while she's looking at that, we're going to say that we're very happy because we have people from Brazil, Mexico, Israel, Canada, Puerto Rico, Portugal, Germany, Maryland, the Cape, Illinois, Salto in Uruguay, Colonia in Uruguay, Montevideo, Soriano, Rio Negro, Wow. Lots.
I'm glad I didn't know that initially. It made me very nervous.
Use of Spanish in the multi-level classroom. What's your position? Use of Spanish in the multi-level classroom. What's your position in that?
My position is you should use as little Spanish as possible. That remember, their comprehensible input is an important part of what they're taking in, but the more that they hear and are exposed to English, it's important. The Spanish is there, the L1 is there, and they need to be in a cloud of English. It needs to surround them. And especially at those younger years, not to worry about that they don't know every single word. Maybe the understanding is only 50%, but it will improve by exposure. Do you agree,
I
disagree?
No, I completely agree. The kids, the only possibility of getting an environment, an English-speaking environment, is when they meet their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very important to see that it is that moment, 40 minutes during the week, that they are surrounded by English. Nowadays, they can find many things in the internet, so they can go to the web and find things. But where they have someone who is mediating with the new language is in that moment, 40 minutes during the week. Is there any other question?
Yeah, Flavia Vasarino is asking, what happens when 80% is 4 or 5 years old and only 1 or 2 are advanced? Got that?
So the majority of the students are very, very low level.
Kindergarten, 4 or 5 years old,
and
only 1 or 2 are advanced.
I would think about breaking into 2 groups and having a student teacher, that those advanced students be in charge of that group. What that would do is give that advanced student a little bit more responsibility, chance to practice, and those younger students would not be in one big lump.
Yeah, as there are very few students in the classroom usually, I think that they can take advantage of perhaps asking the smaller ones to do a certain task. And according to what Barbara was saying, the TPR is one of those things. And while that, the older ones may be doing something related to the topic, but a bit different and according to their age. So sometimes they may work together, but sometimes you differentiate according to the age, their interests, and everything.
More?
Yes.
Federico Bartal is asking, do you recommend any platform or website to support remote classes?
From the technological point of view, the platforms we're using are
sufficient.
Zoom, Meet. I don't know if he's referring to that, or specialized platforms for the teaching of English. Maybe that is a question.
Any platform or website to support remote classes?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have an answer to that. I think in terms of materials, there is plenty with what the program has offered. I think that, the materials are there, you're not at a loss for that. And I'm not sure that I know exactly how the platform part works from different countries. So I'm not the techie person for that.
Is that specific? Federico says specific for remote classes.
Yeah.
We have Zoom.
Zoom, yeah, it's what we use most frequently.
Regarding materials, game, etc., says Federico.
Remember that we have a conference that was Martin, yes, one of the godparents who is a tech teacher. So he taught us how to use the whiteboard in Zoom and some other things. So that is in the web site, the Godparents website. You can find it.
It's archived there.
Yes, it's a kind of guide to that. And related to games and different activities, there are many websites and platforms where you can find things already done and that you have maybe to adapt. So you can find that again in the Godparents website.
GDPnetwork.org.
And related to games and different activities. There are many find the websites and platforms where you can find of what you can do. Things already done and that
Well, thank you very much. I'm hoping that we can meet again on another topic. I'll be talking to Lola about that, Valentina, and no more questions. Yeah.
And probably you may suggest some topics that may be of your interest through our mail or the WhatsApp groups or many other ways of communication that we have, so that you may suggest and we will consider that.
Well, thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Laura. Probably this was the most multicultural presentation ever, because we have people connected from all over the world, and that was a huge success that people made the time to connect and actually to ask questions and to enjoy the presentation. The presentation will be recorded. Actually, it was recorded, so the link will be shared for those who couldn't participate now in a synchronous way. So thank you very much, and that's all, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Adiós.
Hey, now.